Ken Rosenthal was on, I don't know if it was a podcast or one of the MLB Network shows or whatever, but Ken Rosenthal goes on there and he still expects he expects Bohm to be traded still.
Yeah,
So
surprising.
I was shocked to hear that. So it's either one of two things. One, he has information and he believes it's still going to happen, or two, he's out of touch. Because if it's one, okay, like I know that they wanted to mix things up and they didn't want to come back with the same lineup. My read on the situation is it seemed like he said it because he said, well, Dave Dombrowski didn't want to come back with the same team. Okay. I know he didn't want to, but that doesn't mean you're going to say, okay, well, we have to make a trade to make a trade. Dave Dombrowski's, you don't stick around in baseball this many years when you make dumb decisions like that. Not every decision you're going to make is good. Look at the trade deadline. But I don't believe that they were going to trade Alec Bohm just to trade him. So could a trade still happen? Of course. But I don't get the sense that, I would say there's a better chance he's with the team than he's not with the team.
I tend to agree, and I've been feeling that for a while now. They're not going to make a move just to make a move. I think you're 100% correct there. Arbitration numbers are good. Offensive productivity was good. Yes, the slip was there in the second half. The injury was there. Maybe he needs to grow up a little bit feel is certainly fair to criticize. So like the slamming of the helmet and the pouting and whatnot really is not emblematic of what a professional ball player should be doing on a nightly basis. But I think it would be short-sighted just to move the guy. He's a productive player. He's an everyday third baseman. He's going to make $8 or $9 million this season. We've talked about the number. Like where do you get a everyday productive third, doubles guy, 40 doubles, 15 to 20 home runs type of guy, 270 to 280 average guy for $9 million a season, and probably $22, $24 million over the course of 2 years? You don't, right? Like it's very, very infrequent to find that type of player. I think they would have to be blown away by the offer. Maybe not blown away, but they would have to feel they're getting fair value. It's why every time you hear these reports, they're asking for the moon, right? I think they're not 100% serious yet about that move, or at least it doesn't feel that way to me. Right. So if they do move Bohm, I think it's going to be for either a legitimate starting pitcher, which you still need to figure out third base if that's the case, or it's to figure out how you're going to better the outfield situation.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, so let's say that because Luis Castillo has been a name that has been thrown out there, right? So you're adding that salary. So you're not reducing your salary unless they're giving you money.
No, you're adding $15 million.
Right.
So $24 million next year.
Which I think we would all agree that is somewhat of an issue with the Phillies right now is their payroll. They have a huge payroll. This isn't the Yankees or the Dodgers. So if you were to say, let's just say hypothetically you trade Bohm for Castillo, that's great. Now you're increasing your payroll, and now you have to get a starter for third base. Does that mean you're making a trade for Arenado? All right, so now you're adding salary from Arenado. Does that mean that you're going to sign Bregman, which I don't believe is going to happen? Okay, like it just, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like when you look at what Bohm is, and clearly the Phillies have fatigue with his maturity, right?
Sure.
But when you look at Bohm and you look at the type of player that he is, imagine if the Phillies were able to add a similar player for the outfield. What would we be saying? Oh, he's a good player. That's a good signing, or that's a good trade. Well, you're getting rid of that at third base. So it's not like that you have other players that are ready to say you need to add more to the offense. So to me, maybe you're trading Ranger Suarez, and that's how you're getting an outfielder. I don't know, man. It's not. I'm not telling you it's not a possibility that he still gets traded.
Yeah,
But other teams are going to have to step up with an offer of, hey, like this is a really good starting pitcher, even if it's for a season or two.
Yeah,
and that's how you make the trade.
It's plausible that he still gets traded. I'm not like ruling it out entirely. But I think, you talk about the money situation. If they were going to add a big money contract at this point, my guess would have been it would have been for an outfielder, right? And maybe they still do. Maybe the last guy, because I still believe Teoscar Hernandez is going back to LA. I know that he hasn't officially signed anything yet. They're kind of groveling over that third year and how much money and whatnot. I still think Teoscar Hernandez ends up back in LA. So Agreed. The only guy left, if you're adding the big money piece, is Anthony Santander. Now, do you add a Santander to the mix and spend that kind of money? I don't know if they do or not. But if they don't, I don't think they're going to take on salary, and a big salary, I should say, Um,
and going forward, right? Like
right.
you're also so Santander's making big money going forward. As we know, that's not. They want some flexibility.
Sure.
You want that to be the move that you make that is 2026, 2027. I don't. This is clearly not an easy offseason for Dave Dombrowski, and things haven't broke the way that he wanted to, or maybe thought was going to happen.
Yeah, and I think the unfortunate part for us and for people that believe that they think Alec Bohm's going to be back. This isn't me like absolving Dave Dombrowski of not making any moves. It's an understanding of what their situation is. I don't think the Phillies have not objectively gotten better. In fact, they've objectively gotten worse because they have not re-signed Jeff Hoffman. They've not re-signed Carlos Estevez. And the only move that they've made is Jordan Romano, who is a question mark, right? If he's at his peak, you got an elite reliever, but who knows if his elbow still works?
You're running it back with essentially your lineup's the same.
Yeah, it's going to be the same.
And you have question marks in the bullpen. Not that you're not still a good team, but so like last year you expected some younger players. You expected Brandon Marsh to take a next step. Stott to be a little bit better.
Big one for me.
Anyway, and he didn't. Right, he took a step back. So, are we banking on that again? I mean, maybe we just have to accept that Stott's kind of an average regular, an average everyday player. I mean, I don't know. I don't expect him to be an all-star player now in his career.
Well, and if that's the case, if he is an average everyday player, there's nothing wrong with that. If he's hitting eighth and giving you Gold Glove defense, the problem is you can't then turn around and tell me Marsh, who can't hit lefties and strikes out at a high clip, Johan Rojas, who has not shown the propensity that he can hit at a consistent level, and then Brandon Marsh on top of it. That's a third of your lineup. That's where the concerns would start to form. And then when the other third of your lineup, or another third of your lineup is prone to high strikeout rates and high chase rates, that of course then becomes concerning in and of itself. So I think that's the problem that a lot of fans are facing, that if you run this thing back for a third straight year, no one's denying it's still a good team. I think the expectations are they should be a high 80s, low 90s win type of team. It's a good rotation. It is a good offense. It's an offense that, is going to madden you at times. And it's also an offense that's going to win 15 of 18 at one point because they're on a tear.
But predictable and one-dimensional.
Correct. That's the issue that a lot of people are having, is that it's a predictable run back at this point.